Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on all the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil, and still he holds to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause. So Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with painful boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took for himself a potsherd with which to scrape himself while he sat in the midst of the ashes. Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. But he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speak. Shall we indeed accept good from God and shall not accept adversity? For in all this Job did not sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of his adversity, they had come upon him, each came from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, Zophar the Naamathite, for they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and to be comfort him. And when they raised their eyes from afar, they did not recognize him. They lifted their voices and wept, and each one tore his robe and sprinkled dust on the head towards heaven. So they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was very great. Job chapter 2. We're going to have a lot of fun with this book of Job. One thing I want to tell you, one thing I want to get across to everyone. When we study the Bible, we're studying the Bible in order to get to know God better. It's not just about information about knowing things. It's about developing a relationship, knowing the person that you're saying and that you're claiming you have a relationship. And so when we study the Bible, we need to study the Bible from a relational motif, that when we study, it gives us a greater understanding of God. But not only a greater understanding of God, that we use that understanding in relating to God in our daily life. But Job comes up with a lot of problems. There are certain problems in Job. In this chapter, there are some 5 problems that will mess with your theology if you aren't careful. And if the Bible wants to mess with your theology, it has the right to mess with your theology, because we have to check our theology to make sure that it's scriptural. And the first problem we also addressed last week was, why was Satan let in? It says again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. We saw that in chapter 1. There was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves to the Lord, and Satan comes in the midst when there's a day to present themselves to the Lord. But now, here comes another day when they're going to present themselves to the Lord. The first day he presented himself to the Lord, we see the dialogue between God and Satan says, because you paid Job off, Job serves you, but take away everything that he has, then he's going to curse you to your face. And so God gave Satan authority and power over the things that Job had in his possession. So we see his camels were stolen, his oxen, his sheep were burned up in fire, his children were killed, all his herds, all his camels, his oxen, his goats and sheep, all of them were gone, so were his children. And God gave Satan power over Job, but said, don't touch the man. Now, we don't know how long it has elapsed, but it says, again, there was a day. You've been hit so hard the first time. You've been struck so hard the first time. You don't want to hear those words, again, there was a day. Now, remember last week we said that Job plays out in two scenes in these chapters. There's a scene of what's going on in heaven, which those on earth don't know about. So there's a heavenly scene that's going on, and then there's an earthly reality of that Job is dealing with. All Job knows is he had the worst day in hell. The worst day that could possibly happen. And so many things happened all on that day. It could not just be a coincidence. There's so much going on around us with coronavirus, so much going around us with hoarding, so much going around us with people who've been dying for the last year or so, just at incredible rates it seems like. There has been so much around us building up, getting worse and worse. You should not be able to just sit there and think that this is just something that doesn't have a bigger picture behind the scenes. You should be able to see with all the people that we've been losing in this world in this past year, all the problems that had came the past year. You should be able to see with all the confusion in our governments this past year. Families were in crisis in the past year, and now, when 2019, it was a year where, man, you were tested, people died, families started arguing and fussing and breaking up, and now there's a virus that's causing you to quarantine and lock down and have to relate to those same people that have been broken up and broken away from you. You should not look at these things as just those they're just normal and practical. But the problem was it means to position yourself or take a stand. And it means to get in the place that you need to be, but it also has a designation of that you're going to be attentive in this place, but sometimes it says that you're going to be aloof. So it's like this. I'm presenting myself, but I don't have to present myself in a way where I'm humbling myself. I'm showing up for an assignment. It's like right now when with the schools closed down, my daughter said, "Dad, I need you to take me to my school because I have to go. They're scheduled to go at certain times, and only a certain amount of the students could go in at a time. Like 5 students could go in at a time and take their midterm exams." They presented themselves at a time, whether they were ready or not, whether they knew the answers or not, whether they were studied or not. It was an appointment to present themselves. And in the midst, and I could just imagine all them angels in there looking like, what? What he doing in here? It says he comes right there in the midst, in the middle of them, right there in the midst of the sons of God. So the first problem we had to ask, why was Satan allowed? And we started answering that last week when we mentioned the words of Eliphaz in Job 15:15, where it says, "And if God puts no trust in his holy ones, and even the heavens are not pure in God's sight." Now, if even the heavens are not pure in God's sight, for you taking notes, Job 15:15, even if the heavens are not pure in God's sight, and remember we talked last week of how Satan sinned, And the first sin was committed in heaven. How in Ezekiel 28, Satan began to lift himself up. He began to pump himself up, and he wanted to be over the stars of heaven and over the clouds. And he wanted to be first rank among all the angels. And pride was fell in his heart. And boom, he took a fall. So the first sin happens in heaven. The serpent in the garden did not bring sin into creation. The sin that happened in creation happened in heaven. The Garden of Eden sin brought what was manifested in heaven down here to manifest here amongst us in the physical realm. So the heavens are pure. And then we turn to Hebrews chapter 9, where it talks about how Jesus came and he had to purify. Now Hebrew 9, and I'm going to read at verse 19, it says, when Moses had spoken every precept to the people according to the law, he took the blood of calves and goats, the blood of calf and goats with water, scarlet wool, and hyssop, and he sprinkled both the book itself and all the people. He's saying, this is the blood of the covenant which God has commanded you. Now we know when the Last Supper that Jesus takes the words from Moses' initiation of the covenant. When this is the words of Moses when he initiated the covenant of the 10 Commandments with the people. He said the blood of covenant, he sprinkled all of them. When Jesus initiated the covenant, he said, this is the blood of covenant. This is my blood, the blood of the new covenant, which is given for you. And he sprinkles on them. Then verse 21, likewise, Hebrews 9:21, he sprinkled with blood both the tabernacle and all the vessels of ministry according to the law. All things are purified with blood, and without the shedding of blood there is no remission. So he said all things with blood have to be purified. Verse 23, therefore it was necessary that the copies of the things in the heavens should be purified with these. With what? The blood of goats and oxen, with the water and the hyssop, that they will be purified with these. But the heavenly things themselves, which the copies were made of, with a better sacrifice than these. Hold on. The earthly things, when God told Moses to make the tabernacle, he told him to make him in the image of what he told him, and it mentions that in Hebrews chapter 7 and Hebrews 8. We mentioned that last week. The tabernacle was a reflection of what God had shown Moses on the mountain. The earthly things had to be purified with blood. Now it says, if the earthly things had to be purified with blood, but the heavenly things with better sacrifices. What is it saying? So, for Christ entered the holy place made with hands, holy place made with hands, which are copies of the true, but not to the holy place made with hands, but which are copies of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us. So it says this. The earthly tabernacle was cleansed with the blood. The heavenly tabernacle had to be cleansed by a better sacrifice. So the heavens, as Job 15:15 says, they weren't pure, because Jesus Christ had to purify the heavens of heavens with his blood also. The reality was when Satan sinned, that sin had to be purged from the heavens. But without the remission of, without the shedding of blood, there is no remitting or covering over that sin to happen. Which means this, heaven, and I don't know if this is the heaven of heavens, but wherever God is meeting them at. I don't know if God is in the holy throne room, but the Bible says that Jesus with his blood, which is a better sight, cleansed them all. Even the heavenly original, he cleanses them all. So Satan comes into his presence in Job because, man, he still has an assignment. He still has an appointment. He's still enrolled into school. So he still has to show up because a test is coming. Now look at this. So that's the first problem about why Satan was allowed in. And verse 2 says this. This is the second problem. And the Lord says to Satan, "From where do you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord, "From going forth the earth to and fro, walking back and forth on it." The second problem is, why does God have to ask questions? Why does God, who is all-knowing, have to ask questions to anybody? It's been said that when God asks a question, it's because he's trying to extract something from you. He's trying to draw something out of you. He goes to Adam and said, "Adam, where are you?" He knows where Adam is. He knows what Adam did. And he says to Adam, "Have you eaten from the tree which I told you not to?" Adam says, "The woman that you gave me, she took of it and gave it to me, and I did eat." So he said, "God, it wasn't really me, it was you, because you gave me the person who gave me this fruit that I take of." When God begins to ask you a question, he's trying to extract something from you. God, even though he knows everything, he's still going to be relational with you. So there's no problem with God really asking us a question, because he's trying to get out of something that's in us that we're not speaking. So he's trying to extract something from us that he really see us holding it on side. You ever just hold something in and you just got it in your side, and God just say, "What are you doing that for?" Well, God, you really know why I'm doing that. Well, God, I don't like why are you acting like that? Well, God, they did me wrong. They did my son wrong too. But why are you acting like that? Why haven't you come to me to pray yet? Why haven't you let me heal you yet? God, he's trying to extract something from you. And I look at this, I said, what can God want to extract from Satan? Now look at this. Satan came amongst the sons of God. God sees him in the crowd and singles him out and asks, "Satan, from where did you come from?" And he says, "I've been walking back and forth to and fro on earth." All the rest of the angels may have known that. But he says this, "Have you considered my servant Job?" God begins to call Satan out to extract his plan out, not because God doesn't know the plan, it's because the angels don't know the plan. That's good. God begins to bust him out right there in the midst of the angels. Well, God, because Satan, even though he's staying aloof, he's attentive, he presented himself. He's attentive because he has to be there. But he ain't there for God. He's there because he has to be. He's there going about to report in, but then he want to get out and do what he want to do. So he's attentive, but he's aloof. And right in the midst, God begins to draw out Satan's plan. In the first chapter, in the midst of the sons of God, he draws out Satan's plan. And he's basically like this. He's training the angel that this angel now that you used to work with, this is how he operates. Even in the heavenly realm, he's allowing the tree of the knowledge of good and evil to stand in the midst of the place of the garden of God. Adam and Eve had two trees in the midst of the garden. The tree of life, which God gave them permission to eat from, but they wanted to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And they had the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So in the midst of the garden, there is something that is not like everything else around. In the midst of the throne room, there is something that is not like everything else around. God teaching the angels, look, if you're going to fight Satan, you're going to have to know his strategies. He's walking back and forth, formulating plans. And God calls him out. Have you considered my servant Job? It's the second time he says this to him. There is none like him on earth. He says 4 qualities about him. He says, first, he is blameless. Blameless has to do with the way he lives before people. He is blameless. Daniel was blameless. It wasn't that Daniel was sinless, but Daniel was blameless. People could find no fault in him. Job, the Bible, Joseph, the Bible doesn't talk about Joseph sinning. He was blameless. People couldn't find fault with him because he lived a life based upon wisdom. Remember, the Hebrew word wisdom, chakma, is skillful living. He lived in a way where he was blameless for people. As far as people know him, he is blameless. But then he's also said he's upright. Being upright has to do with his stature before God. That he is blameless before people by his behaviors. But because of his genuineness, he is upright before God. Now remember we said last chapter, Job is from the land of Uz. Uz is at the border of Edom. At one time it was a territory, Edom. Job's friends are from places, some of his friends are from places which are Edomite towns. So Job is a descendant of Esau, not a descendant of Jacob. Job is not an Israelite. That's why they let you know Job is one of the first books of the Bible written, but Job is not an Israelite. He's an Edomite that worshiped Yahweh as his God. Esau was his great whatever grandfather. He's a descendant of Esau who worshiped Yahweh. So he would be among the people they would call righteous Gentiles. Cornelius in the New Testament wasn't a Jew, but he was considered a righteous Gentiles. You know, back in Israel, they had this place where the people who had helped the Jews, they add their name to this place, and I think there's 22,000 people whose names are there, and the names are added to the place as a memorial, as in the righteous Gentiles who have helped Israel. And so a righteous Gentile was someone who worshiped God, who feared God, who lived righteous, but was not Jewish. Matter of fact, you are righteous Gentiles, but you have been engrafted in to the wild plant, to the olive tree that is God's people. Now understand, so he's righteous has to do with his stature before God. I think about how the Bible says that Jesus grew in wisdom. Remember, wisdom, skillful living, being blameless, in knowledge, and wisdom and knowledge, wisdom and stature, in favor with God and man. His stature before God is dealing with his righteousness. The Bible says he fears God. Which means this, Job has a focus. He has a God focus in his life. He's like, I fear God. The fear of God will keep you away from some stuff. There's some, because I have a fear of God. Now, the fear of God is not a childish fear of God. Because some people, when we got saved, we may have got saved because we were afraid that God would hurt us. But that's an immature faith. Once you develop a relationship, I don't do it because I'm afraid I'm going to hurt you. I don't do this because I'm afraid it's going to hurt God's heart. I have a relationship with God. There's something, someone try to give you their phone number, like, nope, I got a spouse, and I'm not going to do this because it's going to hurt their feelings. It's not that it won't, attract your flesh sometimes. Because sometimes, even if you don't want the person, you just want to know that you still got it. How you mean y'all been out, you've been out the games so long and everything. I know my wife, she works with a whole bunch of men. And sometimes I know them men gotta be flirting with her because she all cute and all that. And boom. And I know they, boom, one time some guy gonna come by there and they gonna flirt with her and she gonna say, nope. I got a man. You got a what? How long you had? No, some of y'all know the song. I got it. How long you had that problem? No. So, but she gonna say, I got a man. But that don't mean she ain't gonna be like, but I still got it. Boop, once on the scorecard. Good. It's natural. But getting his number would hurt me. I'd walk around, my whole ego would be shattered. Oh, she gave this guy her number. She told him, I'll be calling my bishop. Oh, bishop, what am I gonna do? I'm a winner back. Oh, bishop. Oh, how can she do this to us? We've been married for 20 years. I'll be ready, man. All that macho toughness with me gone. Oh, no. You don't touch my woman. You don't touch my woman. You don't touch my woman. God is saying he loves you that much. You don't touch my child. You don't touch my child. You don't touch my child. Oh, I don't want to grieve God's heart. So the fear I have is I'm afraid to hurt God. Because I have a relationship with him, I'm not afraid God's going to hurt me. I'm saved. I'm his child. I am the apple of his eye. I am the righteousness of God. I am the beloved of God. I keep myself in the love of God. And I don't want to hurt his heart. So, yeah. And if you're going to fear God, you're going to have to turn away from some things. So it says that Job shunned evil. God says this, he's blameless, he's upright, he fears God, and he shuns evil. If you're really going to chase after God and have a relationship with God, you got to turn away from some things. Because I'm God-focused, that means I'm forgetting all those things that are behind. And I'm pressing on towards the mark of the high calling that is in God. So, God asks questions to bring out those things. He's blameless, he's upright, fears God and shuns, and he holds fast to his integrity, although you, Satan, incited me against him to destroy him without cause. Now that's the third problem right there. How can God be incited to do anything? Yeah. It says right here in the text, in verse 3, the B part, he still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me. Although you incited me to against him to destroy him, and I didn't have a cause. God said there was no cause, and you incited me for happen. Now, we know theologically that God cannot be tempted. James chapter 1 says, when someone is tempted, he should not say that God has tempted me, because God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone, but each one is tempted when he is carried away by his own evil desires and enticed. And then when desire has been conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is full grown, it gives birth to death. So we know God cannot be tempted. So he cannot be tempted by evil, but God is saying, you incited me to do this, which means this: God must have another purpose besides what's going on. God says, Job did not do anything to deserve this, but you came with a plan, and I told you that Job was my trophy. I told you that Job was all this. I told you about Job's qualities. And I told you that Job would not curse me to my face. But you said you've been paying him off. Stop paying him off. Take the stuff away. He'll curse you. I showed it. I proved to you, and in the midst of the angels, that there's someone here that's going to worship me, even in the midst of all the stuff that's going on. There's someone here that's going to hold to integrity. Now, God had a purpose, and I really believe that I was that purpose. I could just imagine how many millions upon millions of people, when they had to go through a hard time, went to the book of Job to find comfort. How many people have found their healing and been able to stand in their faith by what Job had went through? God had a bigger plan than what we just thought. I'm going to let you go through Job. I can just imagine in the heavenly scene that when people start coming up there, people are going to say, I want to meet Job. And Job is going to get to meet the millions upon millions upon millions of believers that have been helped by his story. God not only allowed Job to go through this thing, he took Job through it and made Job a testimony. He took him from a trophy into a testimony. You were special to me, but now I'm going to make you a testimony to everyone else. So, here we go, verse 4. St. Anson says, skin for skin. Yet all that a man has, he would give for his life. So God's saying, you said that if, I was paying him off, boom. And if I don't stop paying him off, I put a hedge around him that, he's going to curse me. He didn't curse me. He held to his integrity. And Satan has the nerve to say, skin for skin. A man will give up everything to save his own skin. He will give up all his camels to save his own life. He would give up all his goats to save his life. He would give up his sheep to save his life. He would give up his oxen to save his life. Some people will even allow their children to die in order to save his own life. So because you saved his life and he didn't have to go through personally, a person will give up all that, but you saved his life. So skin for skin. All that a man has, he will give up for his life. But stretch forth your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. So God replies, and the Lord said to Satan, verse 6, this is the next problem. Behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life. Amen. The fourth problem is, why would God place a faithful believer under Satan's power? He says, go. He is in your hand, but you have to spare his life. So God put Job in under the power of Satan, but God ultimately still held the ultimate authority and not allowing Satan to take his life. But that's a hard thing, though. It's hard to conceive that someone can be righteous and God allow them to go through all that. Matthew chapter 4, verse 44 says this. But I tell you to pray for your enemies and for those who despitefully use you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven, who causes the sun to rise on the just and the unjust, and send rain on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you get? Don't even the tax collectors do the same? So God is saying this: because I'm a righteous God and I don't pay people off. They serve me, I bless them. But I because I treat people fairly, I allow the sun to shine on the just and the unjust. I allow the rain to fall on the just and the unjust. So I'm going to allow good times to happen for the just. And I'm going to allow good times to happen for the unjust. And I'm going to allow some bad times to happen for the people who do right and some bad times for the people that do wrong. The only difference is that when the sun shines on us and when it rains on us, that we got the seed of God inside of us, so we grow. Amen. The difference between a righteous man, when the sun shines, my seed is receiving nourishment and strength. And when the rain falls, my seed is being replenished and it's being watered, it's being washed, it's being hydrated. My seed is being strengthened by the sun or by the rain. But an unbeliever, in the sun, they get careless about their life, and in the bad times, they get crooked in their life. There's no seed that causes growth. It causes no movement towards God. And in all things, God wrote this book to be a book of movement. This book is to move you towards God. It's to take you towards God, to move you and move you into the presence of God. Now, so here we go. It says this. So verse 7. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with painful boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. He did not leave a part of his body untouched. And he took for himself a potsherd with which to scrape himself while he sat in the midst of the ashes. Now, the potsherd is a scraping tool or something, but you know, when we talk about potsherd, we're talking about something that's normally, we talk about something that's broken off for a pot. So here he is, he's a broken vessel, and he takes a part of a broken vessel to scrape the broken vessel he is, because these boils are painful, so he's scraping them. They're irritating, so he's scraping them. Boils have pus on, so he's scraping them. And he's attending to this himself. He's scraping with this broken vessel. He's scraping it himself. He's already in sackcloth and ashes from when his kids died. Now while he's praying and fasting in sackcloth and ashes and worshiping God, boils break out on his body. And his vessel's now broken apart. Then his wife comes in, verse 9. She has an insight that maybe she shouldn't have had. She has a revelation. She is grieving. She lost everything, just like he lost everything. But she seems to know something that she could only know if she had heard it from the heavenly conversation. She seems to know that all this is about Job's integrity. She says to him, now that you've gotten even worse, do you hold to your integrity? Why don't you curse God and die? If you curse God, you can go a little faster. Now, there's some people who, say that, she said this out of love. I don't want to see you suffer, but you should curse God and die. And just end it. Just have it over. She doesn't know about the heavenly wager, the heavenly scene. All she knows is that so much stuff has happened. It got to be something going on. Something's going on with you, Job. And the attack on our finances, yeah, that could be either one of us. The attack on our family, that could be either one of us. But when the sickness came down, it came down to you, Job. So obviously God is against you, but you're still holding on to your integrity. Why don't you curse him and die? But Job said to her, you speak as a foolish woman speaks. Verse 9, shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Now, America is a blessed country, but we don't want to accept no adversity. We're going through a coronavirus right now, and we don't want to accept no adversity. It is our adversity. It is our lot. Should we accept good and the blessing for God to be in the most powerful nation on this planet? But shall we not accept adversity? My wife was speaking to me about David in what was the 1 Samuel, I think 24, when he had called the censors of people. And she said, when the plague hit the land, 70,000 people died. But one thing you got to understand, David chose the plague. God gave David 3 options. There could be a famine for 7 years on the land. We're going to starve this land. You're going to be chased by your enemy for 3 months. We're going to have the enemies of God come slaughter people, put you to subject, put you to chase for 3 months before I give you victory. Or you're going to have a plague for 3 days. David chose the plague. He said, God, I do not want to fall in the hands of my enemies, but let me fall in your hands. Will we not accept the adversity? God sent the plague. And the plague went forward and went on until they got to the threshing floor of Araunah. And the angel of God shows up on the scene. And David makes intercession on the threshing floor of Araunah. And please, he said, let it be upon me and upon my family, but spare the people. And he buys that threshing floor of Araunah. And Araunah offers it to him. He said, I'm not going to give God anything that does not cost me something. He buys the place and he offers up sacrifices there. And there the plague was ended. Amen. So what are we going to do to end the plague? The plague, David chose the plague. God sent the plague. But the plague didn't stop till the man of God made a sacrifice. Till the man of God got it right. He stops the plague. Look at this. So, in Job chapter 2, she's talking to him. And he says, we got to accept adversity. Just as we accepted the blessing. God did all this blessing. And last time I told you, naked I came into this world, and naked shall I go from this world. The Lord gives and the Lord take away, but blessed be the name of the Lord. Now I'm here to tell you that we accepted the good. I didn't see you refusing any good or any blessing that God gave you. But as soon as the adversity comes, you're like, oh no, God, this ain't of God. Yeah. As soon as adversity comes, God don't want me this because I'm God's child. God wants to give you some adversity. You'll never grow up. You won't become the prayer warrior God needs without adversity. Amen. We are praying for people we weren't praying for before until the adversity came. Amen. Matter of fact, people wouldn't even wash their hands before the adversity came. Amen. You go in the bathroom, they wouldn't even wash their hands. When the adversity came, it changed our lifestyle. It changed our value. People are forced to cook. Today, for the first time, I cooked me some red beans and rice. And I didn't know how to cook red beans. I said, I've never cooked beans. Not only red beans, I've never cooked beans. And all I know is that you clean them, make sure there ain't no rocks in there or pebbles in there. I think it's like cleaner than it used to be. You clean them and you soak them. That's all I knew. And I knew you boiled them in the pot. I'm like, is it just salt you put in it and like salt and a piece of meat? And and so I put on Facebook and said, I want me some red beans and rice, but I don't know how to do it. People was telling me all their formulas and everything. And they said, you put in there your onions and you cut up the garlic, put the garlic in, the little garlic powder on top of it, your onions, your bell pepper, some seasoned salt. Some people put a little chicken bouillon in theirs. Others put bay leaves in theirs. And, I put some Mrs. Dash in mine also. I said, I like Mrs. Dash. I'm going to put some Mrs. Dash in mine also and everything. And it's like you let it get, you have to let it boil hot first because there's a chemical called lecithin in it. And lecithin is what causes the gas. And if you don't boil at a high temperature, you won't deactivate the lecithin because that's what gives you the beans, the gas. So if you cook it all low, the lecithin might still be in there, and you get a lot of gas. And so I learned a little something. I'm learning biology when I'm in here. I'm learning how my body works. So I said, okay, the chemicals that go in the body. And another person when they start getting soft, smash up some beans at the bottom to make the juice thicker. Smash up, and I'm like, man, I'm getting all these tips and everything, and those beans came out good. They said, put a little turkey neck bone in there. This is coronavirus. Ain't no turkey neck bones in the store. They ain't got no turkey neck bones. We on coronavirus protocol. You ain't got no neck bones there. The neck bones is gone. I went in the store to get, and I seen a pack of chicken wings in there. Yeah. And they were $4 a pound. I was like, oh, the devil is a lie. Yeah. I like $17 for a pack of chicken wings. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Woo. I said, Jesus. I thought the law was they can't raise the price more than 10% during the national emergency. I said, I feel like that's not a price gouge. You gouge me in the eye. Yeah. Right there. Yeah. So the fifth problem when I was thinking about this was, why did Satan leave Job's wife alive? Last chapter, he always left one person to witness, to tell Job about the unfortunate, to drive Job's heart down, to mess with Job's life. In this chapter, he had the permission to kill the wife, but he didn't touch her. Job said, you speak like a foolish woman. I don't think that she was consoling him. I think she was confronting him and blaming him as a hurt woman would. Job, and she was right. All this came upon her because of Job and his integrity. He was the cause. But that doesn't mean that he shouldn't still stand. Now look at this. Now we have entering into the scene. The Bible says Job didn't accept adversity, and all with this he did not sin with his lips. He accepted adversity, so he did not sin with his lips. I wonder if we don't accept the adversity, this ain't for me, are we sinning with our lips? No. God. No. Remember, this is a book about really knowing God. Lessons of God, building a relationship with God. And I'm building a relationship with God, and God said, this is how I operate. No, God, no, you don't do that. You should know the one you're in a relationship with. Someone can come to my wife and say, oh, I seen your husband, he was in the store, the suit store, buying all these nice shoes and all this and everything, and he was doing all this. My wife gonna say the devil is a lie. My husband don't shop. And he ain't gonna go in no clothing store, because my wife knew with me, I used to get anxiety attacks when I went into clothing stores. I was forced as a kid to go into clothing stores, and I hated it. And I got to the place I get anxiety attack. One time I was in a clothing store, and I was about to sock this man in the clothing store. Not because he had did something, because I was getting anxiety and I just needed a reason to leave the store. But God dealt with that. even though I don't get anxiety no more, but I still don't like to shop. So you could tell my wife I'm going to do that, but she know me. Nope, that ain't my husband. You got some. When I met my wife's first relative at work, we worked together, and his last name was Diggins, and I said, "Oh, my fiance last name is Diggins." He said, "What's your?" He said, "What's your fiance name?" I said, and she told me that everyone named Diggins. He said, "Diggins, there ain't no Diggins out there, but my family, everyone named Diggins is related to me." And he asked me, "What's my fiance's name?" I said, "Her name is Makisha Diggins." He like, "You ain't marrying my sister." I said, "Probably, if her name Makisha Diggins, I am." But then later on, he had to thought, "Oh, does she got a brother named Thessie?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, that's my cousin Makisha." Because his sister is named Makisha, but he was automatically, he thought about his sister. "Oh, you ain't married my sister." I thought, "Well, what's wrong with me? I'm your boss." I'm the one running this station. You're working under me. I said, "What's wrong with me?" I should say, "I wouldn't have wanted your sister anyway." I got the real deal. But here we go. He spares her, and she becomes another trouble for Job. You got to build someone up even when the situation looks bad. He's maintaining his integrity, and here he has another tear down from a place, and we know she hurt, but your hurt doesn't have to. Sometimes you just got to back away from someone. They used to tell me when I was young, if you don't got nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all. Keep your mouth closed. Keep it to yourself. But here we go. Now we got the friends coming in. Now verse 11, when Job's 3 friends heard of all this adversity, they heard about the sheep and goats. They heard about the camels and the oxen. They heard about the female donkeys. They heard about the kids. And they heard about Job getting sick. When they heard about all this adversity, they made an appointment, each one of them, and they came together to comfort. They all got together. He got a small group of his boys. These are his friends. You got your boys, you got your girls. Those, that small group that you got, that you hang with, that you depend on, and they got together. They're gonna comfort them. But they came to mourn with him, so we're gonna cry with them. We are brothers, but my brother crying, I'm gonna cry with my brother, because I feel what he feels. I feel for my brother because I love him. I'm going to cry with my sister. Sometimes we got to think, when someone's grieving and we don't know what to say, why don't you just cry right along with them? Sometimes people are grieving and they won't cry because everyone around, they're trying to be strong. Yeah. Sometimes you might just need to cry together. They don't know how to grieve. They don't know how to cry. They don't know how to let it out. But baby, we're going to cry together on this. We need to cry these tears and mourn together. So they came to mourn together with him and comfort him. But verse 12, when they raised their eyes from afar, they did not recognize him. Job had been hit so hard, that none of his friends could even recognize who he was. They look at, is that Job? That man with all that rich, I'm used to seeing him in rich robes, and I'm used to seeing him in fine things. I'm used to seeing him, proud and tall, and I'm used to seeing him one way. From afar, they lift their eyes up. They don't recognize him. Next, they lift their voices and they begin to cry. Together they cry because they came to cry, But when they seen him, they really didn't understand how bad he was in the situation. Someone may have heard a report of what you've gone through, but they don't know how bad you are really in that situation. They did not really realize how bad he was through all this. I heard the news. I heard of your affliction. I know the details of what you went through. But how bad you really are is something that I had to, oh my God, I have no realization how bad you are. So they lift their voices, tear their robes, and sprinkle dust on their head towards heaven. Now they came to, mourn with him, to comfort him. But verse 13 says this: so they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a single word to him. My God. They came to mourn with him, to comfort him, but he's so bad off. We just sitting here. Sometimes all you can do is just be there for somebody. I don't know what to say. We made an appointment. We came together. We 3 of us. I'm waiting for one person to say, the first person to say something. I'm waiting for you to say something. You waiting for me to say something. None of us know what to say. But they sat there with him 7 days and 7 nights. And no one spoke a word, for they saw his grief was very great. All right.